that, and a board adopts the CABE sequence. It's almost like Dewey Decimal System for policies, and it's rock solid. And,
oh, okay. You know. That's interesting. Okay, I think we are good to go.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for the Town of Somers. Present is Tim Keeney, Selectman, myself, Tim Patrica, Selectman, Kim LaFleur, and Mike Marinaccio. We should probably do a Pledge of Allegiance since we're here alive.
I know.
Not on the agenda, but we haven't done it in a while.
I forgot.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that.
Zoom.
Yeah. Yep. Next item we have is a update from Mr. Keeney on the Long-Term Recovery Committee.
Great. As you recall, at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, we had a rather lengthy discussion about a proposed recommendation by the Long-Term Recovery Committee related to stress management training as well as self-assessment for town employees, including the volunteers. And at the end of that probably 15-minute conversation we had, you requested, Tim, that I come back with a recommendation.
Yep.
I went back to the committee and asked them to clarify what it was they wanted, and they drafted the following letter signed by the chair of the committee. It says, dated March 30th, First Selectman Knorr. As you know, the Long-Term Recovery Committee for the Town of Somers was assembled in response to the COVID-19 pandemic with a mission of identifying the unmet needs of the town during crisis and beyond. We as a committee have learned many things and made a number of recommendations that we feel would better prepare both employees and the community members alike in managing crises and its effect on overall well-being. In response to the lengthy discussion at the last First Selectmen's meeting, attached is the Long-Term Recovery Committee's unanimous recommendation and supporting documentation as it relates to stress management education and mental health well-being. We are hopeful that the leadership of Somers will embrace and strongly support annual stress management training and self-assessment as an essential requirement to the town's annual training for all town employees and fire EMS volunteers. Considerable research has been done specifically by Dr. Paul Salva surrounding the emotional and physical fatigue that people experience when having to manage crisis, and in particular, the protracted crisis of a global COVID-19 pandemic that we are living through currently. We've learned that there is, and has been for quite a long time, strong evidence to support that the negative effects of not managing one's own mental health, much the same as we manage our physical health, has and will continue to have dramatic and dire consequences. It was evident from the discussion of those who spoke at our meeting at your meeting that everyone seemed to concur that this issue is one that is valid and currently not being adequately addressed. While the fire EMS services spoke to all the resources that they do provide, there is no required mental health training and assessment. It was further stated by them that after much discussion with the staff as well as other firehouse leadership, that an initiative such as this one we are proposing would not be supported by their staff in spite of the acknowledgement by all in attendance who spoke on the issue of the significant mental, physical, and emotional toll a person endures when having to manage crisis, especially for a prolonged period of time. There may be a number of different reasons for this. However, we ask you to look beyond the reasons why not. Of course, the easiest response is to do nothing because there is pushback. We implore you to look beyond that with the evidence that we have presented to provide a required annual stress management training and mental health assessment through an independent party such as the Lexington Group, the Town Employees Assistance Program provider. as an in-person or online training would be equally effective. This annual education would help our community's workforce in identifying stress, how it can present itself physically, mentally, and emotionally, and what these things can be done to manage its effects. The assessment would simply be a tool to identify signs of stress. While we recommend that the assessment's results be for the benefit of all town employees and fire and EMS volunteers only, and not be recorded or saved by the town, we feel strongly that it is a vital piece of assisting them in identifying and further managing the damaging effects of stress crisis. We appreciate your consideration. Sincerely, Ann M. Canoyer, Chairman, Long-Term Recovery Committee. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we that the town provide annual stress management training and self-assessment as an essential requirement to the town's annual training for all town employees and fire EMS volunteers.
I'll second that motion. Any further notes, Tim?
Yeah. Well, we do have some input from the fire chief.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. I
I
have that right here.
Okay.
Yes, here it is. As for the survey, it says, "Hi, Bud. So we reached out to the Lexington group, and they put on a web-based training session for our members this past Monday entitled Mental Health, Recognize and Respond. It was fairly well received and attended. Unfortunately, Vernon had a large fire at the same time as this drill, so several members were tied up in emergency calls. As for the survey, there is simply no funding available. With all due respect, finance just clawed back over $40,000 from this year's existing fire department budget, and the Board of Selectmen tacked on a spending freeze. I'm cutting critical services like annual physicals, other mandatory training, and deferring much-needed equipment purchases. There's just no way this is going to fly. If you have extra funds available from some magic source, then they need to go towards reinstating critical areas that just got cut before we can contemplate adding a new program such as mental health surveys."
Okay.
Yours truly, John.
Mike, we had talked about potential funding sources at one point from Hartford Foundation and some others. Are those likely for this type of thing, do you know?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a potential too for reimbursement by the state, because these could definitely be connected to
I
COVID-19
think if you can prove
impacts.
a connection to COVID, then there's some kind of grant, either state or federal, that will probably cover something like this.
Okay. Ready for a vote, Tim?
Ready for
Motion's on the table.
ready,
Are you
ready for a vote. One thing I would like to say, though, that even though Chief Roche mentions that there are other things he'd rather fund first, I think that both you and I, Tim, agree that this is a pretty high priority, and it is kind of a top-down situation and recognized by us, and it's not just for the fire and EMS people; it's for all town employees.
Yeah, I think not only is it a high priority, but the Long-Term Recovery Committee certainly has the credentials that would validate their findings as valid, obviously. It was a pretty good team that was put together. So.
And it was a unanimous decision by the committee.
Okay.
Do we know the amount that we're talking? I haven't heard.
I don't recall what the amount was, because there's options for online and in person. I think if we were to vote to approve this, at that point we
would study that.
We would have Bud study the options, and we'd
Sure.
come up with that.
In fact, at the next meeting of the committee, which is the second Tuesday in April, the committee has two people coming in from the Lexington group.
Oh, good. That's great.
After Nicole spoke to them, she
Yeah.
said, "I've got two people I'd like to send to your next
Oh, that's
meeting,"
great.
and they're going to talk about what the possibilities are and
Okay.
how it could be scheduled and managed.
I know that they quoted me $300 for each training, like session, like they just did on Monday, so that gives you an idea of what the Lexington.
I think it depends on how they draw it all up.
Well, that too,
you know,
yeah.
But I think the committee could look at those options and
Sure.
make a further recommendation to fund some specific program. But at this point, I think the motion is that we make it a requirement that training happen.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
None opposed, so the motion carries. Thank you, Tim, and thank you to Ann and the entire commission for all the work they did.
Great. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is scheduled payments. We have a payment authorization request for $174,900.48. I'll make a motion that we approve, for the purpose of discussion, we approve the payment authorization of $174,948.
I'll second that motion.
Questions?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I did talk to Brian about over the phone yesterday, but I think they're just worthy of noting here. GEI Consultants, this is on the first page,
Yep.
3/4 of the way down, vendor code 14518, GEI Consultants for $10,678.80. I just inquired as to what that was for. He mentioned that it was for the wall bidding documents, I think with regards to repair of the wall at the Summersville Mill site.
At the wall on the north bank.
North,
of
the north side,
Yep.
right. And he referred to it as the QAPP preparation, and neither one of us knew what that was. But
That's probably a Jeff question.
anyway, just because it's a fairly sizable amount of money, and I was just curious what
Yep.
GEI is doing here, because I know they've been instrumental in this project from the beginning.
I can find out from Jeff. Goodbye.
That'd be
for you.
great.
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you. And let's see. And I also noticed that there was a bill from Wigan and Dana on page 5, bottom of the page, for $140, and I was just curious what that was for. And he mentioned that it had something to do with environmental documentation for the SEG development at the mill. I'm not sure what they're doing for that, but I was just curious. In fact, I think it would be helpful to get updated at our next meeting on the mill project as to where things stand and where we are.
There was some money left in the grant pile, right? The pool of money for the grants.
For the mill?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there
it was 200,000.
So would these payments be coming out of that?
Some of them are.
Funding.
I know that because they come across my desk and I'm like, me and Brian, we have to meet with Jeff and figure out what goes towards the grant and versus what
Okay.
goes in. So and we can get that information for you.
All right.
And just before you leave, if you both sign that.
Well, there's a motion we haven't voted
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry. When you're done.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now we can sign it.
Okay, thank you. Brian will have my head.
Next item is boards and commissions. Tim, you want to do a quick overview while I sign up on this?
Sure. We have a letter that came in from the chairman of the planning committee, Greg Genlot,
Oh, thank you.
basically mentioning that Brad Pelletier is being considered to be for an opening of an appointment on the planning committee, and he is also presenting Pat Pio the third's name for his approval as well. So my understanding is there's one vacancy because of the passing of Cliff Bordeaux, and that explains why there is a vacancy, and that we have two people recommended for filling that vacancy, but because Mr. Bordeaux was a Democrat, I believe, and we also have support from Kathy Devlin, the Secretary of the Democratic Town Committee, for the support of Brad Pellicier's petition. I recommend that we make a motion that we approve Brad Pellissier to fill the vacancy, and in the same motion appoint Pat Pio III to fill an alternate slot that's also available.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And thank you to both Pat Pio and Brad Pellissier.
I know, huh? It's great.
Two strong people there. That's great.
Next item we have is approval of the minutes from the March 18 meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 18 meeting as presented.
I'll second. I didn't have any changes, Tim. Did you?
Nor did I. I reviewed them. Yep, it's
All in
first
favor?
time.
All in favor?
I think we should do the wave.
Motion passes. All four of us.
Always the first time.
Hey, listen, I'll take
A week wave. But it's good. Opportunity to add agenda items. Does anyone have anything to add? Hearing none?
No, except that,
okay.
as I mentioned, though, if we could put the mill project on the
Yeah,
next
so
meeting.
for the next meeting, I'm
And
putting
also,
on policies
Yep, policy
Discussion.
management
Yeah.
and
and Ann's.
an update on the mill.
An update on the mill. Yep,
Yep.
I got that. I will take care of that.
Very good.
Right.
I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, it was nice to see
That's
you
a
in
record.
person.
Yeah,
Really, truly.
it was good to be here in person.
I know. I want things to start going back, but out looking at Steve Jacobs' email, things are starting to boom up again.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
So I don't
Mike, what's the
know.
latest on the budget? I didn't attend that meeting. It's Monday, but
Well, the
I know
flyer
you were
was been
there.
approved by the Board of Finance. It's going out.
are we
on
still
Monday.
on? Yeah.